All right, my iPad's like 30 seconds behind. Where they get going?
All right.
All right, good evening. It's 7 o'clock and I will call together the October 26, 2023 school committee meeting. We will start, if you folks have joined me by standing and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This evening, we have a consent agenda posted, as well as the minutes from our October 12th meeting and standard the bills and payroll. Accept the motion.
I move that we accept the agenda.
So the minutes from October 12th and the oath of bills and payroll. Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have four presently in quorum, so we'll mark that as unanimous. Stacy was going to help join us a little bit on Zoom. This is our first opportunity for interested citizens. So if there's anybody before us this evening that wishes to speak, no one on the committee, no one on Zoom, we will move right along. So this evening we've got Jay back. Jay, thanks for joining us. I'm just going to kick it off with the report for each school and the subsequent events. So turn it over to you, Jay.
So starting off with the Russell Street School, third graders had their annual visit today from members of the Littleton Rotary and received a personally inscribed student dictionary. This is a wonderful tradition that we look forward to each year. The students did a fantastic job shaking hands, showing gratitude, receiving their dictionaries, and clapping for their classmates. Special thanks to the Littleton Rotary. They're also looking forward to classroom Halloween celebrations next week. And with the help of the PTA and classroom ambassadors, students will have some fun, games, and festive activities on Tuesday. For Shaker Lane had their November community meeting earlier today. They talked about the H in heart, which stands for honesty. They also kicked off their first compassion project, and they're partnering with Loaves and Fishes to complete a Thanksgiving food drive over the next 2 weeks and look forward to helping our community. Shaker Lane is also very excited to host their first cultural fair next Thursday evening, November 2nd. From 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. All family and community members are welcome to attend and enjoy this event. For the middle school, they're hosting their annual 7th and 8th grade Halloween dance tomorrow night, and it should be spooky scary. For the high school, on October 31st, we have our senior class Halloween photo, and on November 1st, the exchange students from Spain will be moving. And on November 3rd, we have a photo day makeup day, and on November 9th, we have the students and Sweets band performance. And November 14th is New England Math League, and in-school college visits are winding down in the next 2 weeks. That's all. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you. Sounds like a busy time. Thank you very much.
It is. Ramp it up.
Do we have any other recognition this evening?
I just have one, and Lynn has one. Just want to piggyback on what Jay said about Rotary. The Rotary Club of Littleton has been handing out dictionaries for many years, over 20 years. Their grade threes always look forward to them coming into school and handing out signed copies of dictionaries. I was in attendance today. I am a Rotary member as well, and they were great. I mean, they represented Russell Street School very well. Great ambassadors. And special thanks to the Rotary Club for keeping this tradition going as long as they have. And Lynn, you have a recognition as well.
I do. I actually wanted to give a commendation to Dr. Turner. She's a member of our clinical team. She works at Littleton High School. She's really played a significant role in revitalizing our unified sports team with Mike Lynn and Eric Arnold. She's also running our PALS program, which is a really wonderful opportunity for our students with disabilities to partner with students for social activities. They have a fun Halloween party coming up, and she already has 18 students participating. She also runs the high school's DEI club. She offers drop-in times to staff on a weekly basis as a mental health support for students and staff. She plays a really pivotal role in the Spirit Week at the school, and really plays a critical role in the school-wide mental health screening. So I just wanted to really note those things. She really takes on a really important role and is doing some wonderful things for both DEI and mental health and students with disabilities. And given that that's one of the topics on the agenda tonight, I wanted to make a point to share that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good work. Okay, this will kick, we have a somewhat of a busy agenda this evening. This will kick off our new business portion of the meeting. There's a couple line items here that Dr. Clinch is going to lead us through, but the first is a line-wise parent seminar occurring October 8th, 2023. Superintendent Kelly Clinch, you will discuss the upcoming line-wise parent webinar on November 8th.
Well, thank you. There's
Welcome.
a pamphlet in your package. Beth and I met with Stacy, who's a real advocate of helping parents understand when to introduce cell phones to their children. After having a conversation with Stacy, we decided that there's still a significant interest in our community to learn more about social media and bring them together and have conversations about when is it a good time to introduce cell phones to your children. So as a result, we created this presentation. We use LineWise in our district, and we have a link on our website that gives you a lot of safety tips for your children that are using cell phones, etc. We also have a security system that we use with them as well. So we're very pleased with this company that we've been using for about 4 years now. So shout out to anybody that is interested in cell phone use and children and youth. Please pre-register for that presentation on November 8th.
I would say that's probably everybody. And I would say if the child doesn't yet have a cell phone, you probably want to take this one in because once they have one, it's too late.
Sure.
All right, so new business item number 2 here. There's a number of articles which Superintendent Clinch will walk us through, but this is related to the special town meeting, which is occurring November 1st, 2023. There's articles 7, 8, and 10.
Right. And these 3 articles really are applicable to the school committee. We've talked about 2 of the 3 anyway, and actually the third a little bit as well. First one, Article 7. We've had a conversation about the need for the Schcmte Building Committee to request more funding to be able to complete the OPM and feasibility study design construction for Shaker Lane. So there's a warrant article to raise another $385,000 on the town meeting. This should give us sufficient funds to finish this phase of the project. Article 8, overlay of reserve transfer and capitalization stabilization fund. This pertains to the Indian Hill building that was purchased by the town. There are tentative plans that the school department would move to the 2nd floor, Park and Rec would move to the 1st floor. And they're looking to transfer $4 million from the overlay reserve into the capital stabilization fund. And it's intended to be utilized for future capital expenditures for Indian Hill. Article 10, high school tennis courts, community preservation fund. We had a presentation from Park and Rec a few weeks ago. The cost of this project is $734,000. So the warrant article is recommending that amount be appropriated to the design and construction of tennis courts, the Littleton High School for recreation purposes and school use under the Community Preservation Act, and to fund such design and construction that $400,000 be appropriated from the Community Preservation Act, and $334,000 be borrowed by the treasurer, who is authorized with the approval of the select board to issue any bonds or notes that may be necessary for that purpose. So that's a little different than when we had them here. They were at that point in time, they did not know how many dollars the Community Preservation Fund was putting in this project. So it's almost a 50-50 split, I guess. And I think that's important for you to know as a school committee that additional funds will be requested at the town meeting. Any questions on those 3 articles?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, I'm just curious if, what the connection between the school department is with the tennis court initiative.
It's on school
Well, the
property.
tennis courts are on high school property, and these tennis courts are they're gonna rebuild our tennis court, change the direction of the facing. And the tennis courts by the town offices will be taken out for the construction of the senior center. So it does affect us because we use those tennis courts for tennis as well. And it's going to allow us to have all of our tennis practices and competitions at the high school. And it's on high school property.
From what I understand, I don't know if you know this, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're required to have 4 courts in town in order for there to be a high school tennis team, right?
We do require for.
So if there aren't 4 courts, there can be no high school tennis team. So we're losing 2 by the fall. So we have to put 2 more somewhere and there's at the high school where the others are.
Correct. You have varsity teams and JV teams that all need to compete at the same time.
Makes a lot of sense.
We're happy.
Yeah.
The only one where I think we may hear from citizens is on Article 7, perhaps, because we'd already gone to town meeting before and requested a sum of money, and it's a difficult environment, right? So cost of construction and all related services due to inflation are up substantially. It kind of, it's that old adage, like it is what it is. We have to raise this additional 385. We don't do it lightly. But we all recognize the fact that the Shaker Lane School is in need of a good look or potential raising and rebuilding, who knows? But it's tough. I mean, you know, I never like telling the town one thing and then whatever it is, 6 months or a year later, we have to go back and ask for additional money. So
Exactly.
doesn't sit particularly well with me, but it was kind of out of our control, right? We had budgeted a certain amount. We thought that was the number in good faith, and then we were surprised by what a feasibility study actually costs. I don't know if there's more to add to that.
Well, just that we're not the only ones in this position that are in this phase of the project. So
Right.
we have company.
Okay, we can move on from that. If you don't have any other questions, I'm just curious, do the other school committee members plan on attending the special town meeting?
I'm hoping to, yeah.
Okay.
Don't have child.
I believe I'll make it. And then Superintendent Clenchey and Steve Mark, you'll both be there
Yep.
in the event that we have to answer questions. I mean, I think we would only be really asked questions on 7, I think. 8 and 10 other bodies might answer questions on those, but. Okay, we good with that?
I think the other comment I'm going to make, and I want to be cautious how I make this comment. There may be a possibility, as I alluded to before, that 385,000 may be found within the town budget, but I am not close enough to the town budget to say that with certainty. I know we've had discussion about that. Maybe it's not available anymore, but it wasn't at the time.
Okay. All right. Well, if there needs to be a conversation with the finance committee or select board prior to November 1st, just let me know.
Okay, sounds good.
Perfect. Good. All right, that closes the new business portion of the meeting. We'll move on. We'll get a couple of presentations this evening, 3 to be exact. First one of which is going to be presented by Steve Mark. It's a financial and budget update.
Right, thank you. So the report is in your packet. Again, this is our standard financial report. It's a cost center summary. Honestly, we're midway through October. There's not a lot of news here to tell. We're way too early to start predicting what utilities are going to be, but we're always watching utilities as we move forward. So right now, I'd say financially, we're in good shape with our budget so far. We haven't had any surprises at all this year with tuition and things like that yet. So the forecast is good right now for finances. Any questions on that? And then I'll move on to the next quick update, I guess. More information, I guess. So we have to, every year, we have to submit a capital budget, a 10-year capital plan to the town. The summary of that 10-year capital plan is in the report. These are basically some big ticket items. I won't go through line by line on all this. If you look at the second page of that, you can see that over an 8 or 9 year period, we're talking an investment of a little over $11 million into the school system. This is for HVAC systems on both the high school, the Russell Street School, the middle school, roof projects that are coming up on the high school, potentially the middle school. All of our roofs are getting to the point where they're 22, 23, 25 years old. We need to start planning for those replacements. Capital money for next year. Justin, you talked about the price of construction going up. So we had gone out to bid on a rooftop unit at the high school. Had forecasted what those funds were going to be. We had received $270,000 from the town. We went out to bid and the bids came in at over $350,000 for that. That's just the way the construction and the HVAC business and all construction has gone up recently over the last couple of years. So you see one of the requests on here is an additional $125,000 that we're asking the town. We can move forward with that project and replace that our rooftop unit at the high school. That's the unit that services the auditorium. It's 24 years old. Typical lifespan of that unit is 15 years. So I think we've got our money's worth out of it, but it's time to move on and replace it. It's band-aided together with a bunch of different systems that are making it work, but we can't keep going forever. So again, I won't go through line by line. You can read this and see kind of what some of the big projects are over the coming years. We're looking to get some additional money for some flooring at the high school for next year as well, and things like that. So again, I'm glad to answer any questions or provide additional information if you have some.
Questions from anybody? Steve, my question, I suppose, would be, so the 665,000 that we're looking for, essentially presently, would be our request for this this upcoming fiscal year. I suppose that's sort of our bare bones request, because if I look at 650 and then the following year jumps to 4 and then 4.9. So, you know, we had heard from the town, finances were going to be tough. They're working on a number of projects in town to try to bring additional tax revenue in. So is it my understanding that we are by design a little light for fiscal year 2025 because we had heard the messaging from the town?
Yes, that's we don't want to ask too much and be unrealistic. That said, we do need to start thinking about replacing these units. The longer we put it off, the worse it gets, and eventually we have to spend the money in the town anyway to
Correct.
do it. So if the town chooses to push off, say, the $400,000 into next year, into 2026, we can have those conversations, but that just means all the other projects then get pushed out even further too, and we can't keep pushing these projects off. So, in my opinion, so.
So my follow-up questions are sort of the big ticket items for 2026, 2027, which is, looks like we're trying to split the high school roof across those 2 years. And then also look at accomplishing the Russell Street roof in 2027. Are those ballparks? Have we bid that work?
No, these are ballparks. We did get some money. We got $50,000 approved the last town meeting to do an engineering study on the high school roof. I'm in the process of working with an engineering firm now to solidify what that study will entail. And they'll come out and do some thermal scans and do a study on the high school roof and come up with a plan as far as what they recommend. How soon can we wait? How often does it, how soon does it need to be done? Because the roof is in a couple of different sections. Is the gymnasium section, is the auditorium. We could conceivably do that project in a phased approach. And so we're working with the engineering firm to make those recommendations, what should be done in what order, things like that. So that's why I had that split into 2 costs.
Gotcha.
And then at the same time, we're also working with the engineering firm to also look at the middle school roof and the Russell Street roof and make those same recommendations.
Right. It looks like, aside from Shaker Lane, because that's a different animal at this point in time, all 3, there are 3 remaining schools all need roof attention.
They're all over 20 years old.
Gotcha. And then just out of curiosity, because like $25,000 of track resurfacing, like in 2032. I mean, that doesn't seem like 25,000 to get us very far for track resurfacing. Like, is that actually redoing the track or?
It's replacing the rubber
Okay,
surface, and they recommend you do that between I don't remember the exact, it's around 15 years is what
Yeah.
they recommend.
and it's really only cost 25 grand.
Well, that's the number we had quoted to us a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
They'll probably cost more.
We'll see, but that's why it's a long-term way out.
sure.
We're also working and partnered with the Littleton Track Organization, and they have donated funds for future replacement of that track, which we already have.
Yeah.
It's sitting in their gifts and donations account. And they donated $40,000. So
Great.
we think between those two, that should be enough to resurface the track.
A similar question for the 65,000 for the alumni playing surface and carpet. Is that that doesn't seem like that's gonna get us very far. Is that actually replacing the entire playing field, or is that just kind of taking the existing?
No, that
rubber out
would be
and
replacing the entire carpet. That's the recommendation, is you replace the entire carpet on the field. And again, we're within gifts and donations, when we rent that field out,
Yeah.
we are setting some of those funds aside for future purposes, for future maintenance of that carpet on the field.
Okay. Sounds good.
One
Wow.
question
And
about
again,
that.
but it's 8 years out, so
Yeah, I mean,
prices may
I'd be
be,
willing if that's
we could
sixty-five
go out and get
thousand.
prices now, then that's gonna be irrelevant in 8 years, so.
The other thing is, I don't mean to open a can of worms, but wasn't there some law passed that the substance, the rubber that we use on the field now is not allowed anymore in Massachusetts? So you have to-
We don't use crumb rubber, we use something called EDPM,
Okay.
which is safer.
Okay,
And I don't believe there was a law passed that banned it. They were trying to pass a law that banned future artificial fields in the state of Massachusetts.
right,
That did not pass.
okay.
Yeah.
So this number would be an estimate based on just replacing what we currently have.
Correct,
The new bird.
correct. And it all depends on how much wear and tear it gets. Maybe we get 16 or 17 years out of it. Maybe we get 14 years, depending on how much we use it and how much wear and tear it gets on it.
Let's put this on the agenda for like our next budget subcommittee meeting to review the
It
capital
is.
projects here.
Yep.
Perfect.
All right, thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much. All right. Yep, so moving right along, we have a presentation by all four school principals, new school improvement plan, update, standard 4, climate and culture. And it looks like youngest to oldest in terms of the children. Principal Kane's up first.
Good clarification.
Yeah.
And it was Sports Spirit Day, so that's why I'm
Love it,
like grace today for our kids.
Give me 1 second, I'll pull it up, but keep
Sure.
talking.
So, we'll just see that presentation in a second. The first one that we have going across, is about school safety and timing is of essence right now. We did have our first school safety drill last week. We used the word school safety. It is a form of atlas. It progressively gets more appropriate as the kids get older, but with my parents, I've used school safety drill. We focus on a couple aspects of it. We do have the kids evacuate. It's kind of like listen to your teacher, follow to your teacher, listen to, we use the words trusted adult. So that's what we use at our grade level. And the other part of our drill is talking about barricading inside. We don't barricade for fear of anything happening to the kids. So we just talk about what could we put in front of the door? What could we do to keep ourselves safe in this room? So that's one of our drills. At our first staff meeting in September, we did go out over our reunification plan. Should we have to reunify at St. Anne's or the high school? So our staff knows, who they are, where they're positioned, what their roles and responsibilities are. Should we have to evacuate and then have our reunification at one of those locations? The next thing we have about school safety and health and wellness, the HEART program, I can't even say how long it's been here. I know it was prior to Mr. Partham, not Mr. Partham, Mr. Verity. And then the gentleman before him,
Mr. Bates.
Mr.
Yeah.
Bates,
Yes.
him. So I think it has been there for a long time, and I don't see HEART going anywhere, because if you think about honesty, effort, acceptance, respect, and take responsibility, those are the building blocks that should be at every primary school. So we are just building upon heart. I talked a lot about our school mission. We are building a safe, caring, and ready to learn school community. We are, embracing that with heart. So every month we have a community meeting. We gather together in the cafeteria and we read a story. This one was about honesty. We actually had 2 of our second grade students read this story to the class. To the whole school. We recorded it and presented that to the kids. We talk about compassion projects. We talk about giving back to our community. Those essential building blocks that kids should have for life. We also have heart jars. So when the kids are showing heart in there, and I know this is redundant and we do it year after year, but again, these are things that I don't think should go away because they feed into it at, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They feed into, showing heart, giving their best effort, filling their heart jar, getting a reward for doing that. Several years ago, I know Dr. Quincy had started the Tiger Paw of Excellence, and that is a staff-to-staff handoff where we celebrate at our staff meeting every month a new staff member that has really shown excellence this month or something that they've done that's really, should be celebrated. Rebecca Deacon actually brought in this next thing that we have. It's called staff pins. And we have a lanyard that she got all of us this year. And we each started with a heart for Shaker Lane. And we just started to hand out paws. And the paws are giving to staff members that are really showing heart, really showing, something that achieves our mission statement together, something that embodies Shaker Lane. So I believe we handed out 3 or 4 of them, not last week, the week before. We have another 3 or 4 going out tomorrow. And these are, the whole goal is for us to build the lanyards with our pins. So we have paws, we have hearts, we have, I think, two other ones that we're planning to give out throughout the year and the years to come. So again, just building that community, building each other up, celebrating each other. So that's the first row that you see there. The next thing, again, to enrich the heart program, we have our social groups. Mrs. Diadco, our school adjustment counselor, has been out on leave. She comes back next Wednesday, which would be great. But in the interim, Mrs. Kenny, who is one of our additional unified arts teacher, has been doing social groups. She has been doing lunch groups, snack groups, some one-on-one support for our kids. Our school psychologist has taken on some of that. And that's something, again, that we teach these lessons to the kids. We teach them in small group. We have whole class lessons. So that, again, is building the social awareness skill. The one underneath that, you utilize diverse literature and activities to promote equity. Each month, Ms. Deacon and I started this last year. Each month we offer the teachers kind of like a quick break, like 15 to 20 minutes, where they can sign up and have one of us read to their classrooms. So every month we pick a book. This month it was the story Navy by Kobe Yamada. And it's just a story about, about you and Navy. Maybe, the world hasn't seen all of your potential. Maybe you're not realizing what you can do. So it was more about who you are and feeling confident in that you are somebody. The next month is Annie's plaid shirt, and it's about a little girl who has this plaid shirt and she wants to wear it everywhere. And she has to go to this celebration, but she wants to wear her plaid shirt. So it talks about just being comfortable in who you are and what you want to wear. The one we have after that is called Different, a great thing to be. And it just talks about diversity and how we're all different and we appreciate each other. So the teachers sign up for these book readings. We come into the classroom. The teachers get about 15 to 20 minutes. They usually don't need them more than 5 because they usually want to hear the stories. So that's great. Again, just to promote acceptance, diversity, and across a whole breadth of topics, not just, cultural diversity, but individual diversity, acceptance. I don't have my paper for the next slide. Okay, thank you. So last spring, we handed out a community culture and diversity survey, and we sent that out to families. We got a lot of feedback, which is great. And there's been this little mini cultural committee at Shaker Lane that's put on some really cool ideas, really cool events. Next week is our first one. As Jay had shared, we have our first cultural night and cultural fair, and we look forward to, I think we have 13 families signed up to present. We have Shaker Lane families will read about this. We have some plus blocks that Mrs. McGregor came up with this idea. And we have a bunch of flags from around the country so kids can make the flags based on the plus blocks that we have. We have virtual reality goggles that will take some people on a virtual reality tour of a place. We've identified 5 different places. And we have a green screen that will also, they can pick their background. So we're hoping to make it, the first of many events coming. So that was actually based on one of the parent responses, one of the family responses back in the spring. So our hope is to look at that, continue to offer a variety of experiences for our kids and families. The last piece we have there is the district maintenance plan. So we do that with our school council, and that will be one of our agenda items for the month of November, is to look at our district maintenance plan that Eric Bentley has provided us with, go through it. We have updates from our energy manager. We get notes on that, doing pretty good at Shaker Lane. And because this is a 3-year school improvement plan, the last one on there, I'm hoping that we get to in the next year or 2. And that's really to develop a team of staff and community members to support whatever way we go with our Shaker Lane building initiative, whether it is renovate or build, and just reaching out to families, staff, for ideas and topics. And I know when Dr. Clenchey and I went over to Harvard, that was one of the things that they thought was really beneficial, was tapping into the community members, the kids, things that they would think of. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition by the end of this school improvement plan, and that we have figured out where we're going at Shaker Lane. I think that is it for Shaker Lane. Any questions for Shaker Lane?
Questions, comments?
Well, I really appreciate that you led with how you implement the Alice drills in a really developmentally appropriate way. Because I remember when those drills first started happening in elementary schools, it was really scary for kids. And that was one of the things I wanted to ask about. So I'm very grateful that you put such careful thought into how to make this important safety routine developmentally appropriate, so that you can sort of meet both of the needs at the same time. So thank you for that. And I also was really happy to hear about the heart jar, because that's such a great initiative to have in place to support teachers with catching kids being good. It's so easy to be reactive and catch them being bad, but this, and especially if it's consistent across the building, it really can build a climate of looking for the good things. So thank you for that.
One of the things, can I just add, to build on that, we have the heart jar is so enticing to some kids that some kids actually have individual heart jars when they have more challenging times. So it's really neat. We've had a couple of kids who have heart jars for bus rides. We have heart jars for packing up and unpacking. The other thing I didn't add up there that I just want to add about kids and internalizing things and realizing things was this a couple slides ago. We started reading a positive affirmation every morning, and we do it for the entire week. So I think this week's positive affirmation is, it is enough to do my best. By the end of last year, we had 2nd graders sending down positive affirmations to us saying, Ms. Kane, Ms. Deacon, can you read this positive affirmation? And it was so great to see those kids that we were sending up to Mrs. Temple ready to be like confident in who they are and starting their day. So that was really cool for our big kids.
And just so you know, so my oldest child is I think he's 37. He had heart in Shaker Lane. So that's how long that's been around. And it's worthy of it.
And still going strong.
Still going strong.
It is.
Love it.
It's all great. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
When you go to second, you realize how things you left off of your presentation. Right back in paper. All right. So Russell Street, our first goal is very similar to Michelle's, review and maintain and modify the protocols and procedures for safety for students and staff. So at Russell Street, we do the same. Our Alice drills are appropriate for our kids as well. The drills and the conversations that we have in 3rd grade are different from what we do in 5th grade, both in the fall and in the spring. I do want to shout out to the police department for their help in those conversations and drills as well. Fire drills we have had consistently. We review our emergency protocols, and they're updated out with students and with staff. In terms of building capacity around our school environment that fosters social emotional learning, we do have a SEL block built in to our schedule this year at all grade levels. So the teachers primarily use the second set curriculum, but they can vary from that as well, depending on what they want to talk about in their classes. During morning meeting and afternoon meeting, which is something that went away during COVID, but is back and is a really nice addition. There's lots of good conversation that happens there. We did, as one of our action steps, we didn't create but we created outdoor spaces for students. There has been for some time outdoor classroom behind the third grade wing. And thanks to the PTA, we kind of neatened that up and kind of cleaned up the bulletin board or blackboard area. Last year with some funding that I had, I bought cushions for all up to that log seating that's out there. And that's a space that gets used a lot for kids. If you pull up to Russell Street, you'll notice that we added some blue sort of picnic tables, round picnic tables in the front. There used to only be a few and now there's more. And kids sit around those tables and can bring a game outside if they choose to do that instead of a more active recess time. So that has been really nice. We follow up in building citizenship at Russell Street. We follow up with stripes. It's our version of heart for our kids. And it's, I have to always remember, safety, take responsibility, respect, integrity, perseverance, empathy. And it's the same, the kids get a slip of paper that goes on a bulletin board in front, and then the other slip of paper goes into a jar in their classroom. And when they get the note to bring home to say why they earned that day. I have to give credit to Joan and Mary in the office because they cheer every time a student brings one down and says, I got this today. What did you get it for? And they go, yay, every time. And then eventually we get them all up on the bulletin board. But it's very lovely that even, it doesn't even get old with our fifth graders. They are happy when they get a stripe for something too. It's very funny when a student thinks they should get a stripe for something. A little boy came up to me today and he said, I cleaned that strawberry off the floor and it wasn't mine. And then waited thinking, I'm wondering if I should get a stripe for that. And so we talked about it. Very cute. We have some school-wide activities too that we plan to build citizenship. We have a sunshine committee for staff, and that's always wonderful that they put gatherings and social activities together for staff, which is lovely. The Tiger Paw of Excellence, as Michelle indicated, we give that out. I always try to tweet that picture out. We do it once a month. Our most recent recipients were the support team in our PACE classroom. We do special events as well. We have a Spirit Week coming up, sponsored by third grade. Fifth grade is sponsoring a turkey trot right before Thanksgiving. As we did last year, we'll do a food drive again for loaves and fishes. And our fourth grade typically does a compassion project each year. Last year, they created birthday boxes that were donated with all everything that you need inside for a family to be able to have a birthday party for their child, from placemats and cake mix and things like that. And that's a wonderful project. So we'll see what they come up with this year. Let's see. Yeah, probably up to the next one. So review and revise the district maintenance plan, similar to what Michelle indicated. We just want to really make sure that the building stays a nice, clean, inviting place for students and staff. I think as all the principals would indicate, we all have kind of skeleton crews in our building to clean, but they're wonderful. And really shout out to Eric, who's done a wonderful job and is very, what's the word? Attentive to issues around the school. If you call him about something, he comes right over to look at it, and he does a really nice job with making sure that we're taken care of. And then the final one here is continue to support the district's energy and environmental conservation initiatives. I put Dave Riley as our indicator for success. Dave's wonderful about leaving notes and reminders when it's a long weekend or vacation week, and just making sure sometimes that information people just sort of forget about it, and it's invaluable for him to he sends notices when it gets cold out. He's telling you what you should do with your windows and things like that, and making sure that the building gets closed up appropriately over long weekends or things like that.
We really have tried to make a push for, better recycling throughout our building. I think just in terms of trends over the years, it's something that, you know, everybody kind of did. I remember it being really important things that my own kids did. And then we kind of went away from it a little bit. And I think we're really trying to emphasize more that there should be way more in the classroom recycle bins than in the trash. And shout out to Lean Bottom also for the composting that we're doing for Black Earth compost in our cafeteria. Our daytime custodian, Rich, has to do some extra work in getting that and gathering that together and getting it outside. But that has been a successful project since maybe early winter, early spring last year. So that's what really was.
Excellent.
Any questions?
None for me.
Yeah, go get water.
Okay, there's some bottom right here. Let me get to that.
Of course.
As I do a question, what I get?
We'll stall for them.
Thank you.
Be back.
So I'm really glad to hear that you have carved out a SEL block. That's really important. Could you talk a little bit more about what the second step program provides that you're using in that block?
Sure. So we've had the second step curriculum at Russell Street. It's a 3 to 5 curriculum that's different in each grade. And there's a whole series of lessons. I think our teachers, I know last year, one of the 3rd grade teachers told me she did every single lesson in the curriculum. I think the majority of the teachers pick and choose the lessons that are appropriate in their class at that time. It's not a curriculum that you have to go, through every single lesson, so they can pick and choose in the book. And if there's something different that they want to do in terms of their SEL block, they can. If it's something important, if they need to talk about sharing or taking turns or whatever in their classroom, there's likely a lesson that coincides with that, but they don't have to stick with that curriculum. It's just a base for if they choose to. And so it really depends from classroom to classroom how they're using that SEL block.
Yeah, that's great. So they can adapt it to the needs.
Yeah, I was going to talk about this with the other presentation, but we also, and I will, but because I brought props. We also have, I've mentioned it 100 times. We also have Book a Day that started with our previous librarian, Starla Hazen, and is continued with our new librarian, Sarah. And it's basically picture books that go, there's a series of picture books in each basket. Each classroom gets 7 or 8 books, and then they rotate the books every week. And you'll see from the selections that I brought that there's a lot of conversation that comes from those books. And so that's another thing that they might read the book in the morning meeting and then continue that discussion during the SEL block. Thank you. You're welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, it's a worse feeling.
All right, for the middle school, there's really 2 main goals that are connected. They're dovetailed. The first one is one of the things that the families on our school council really wanted us to address was mental health, student mental health post-COVID, and especially in those middle school years. And so it was really something that they felt very passionate about. And we started to kind of build an idea around what would that look like. So one of the things that we want to do is find and develop and implement a program that will allow us to do mental health check-ins without the large scale screenings like we do a couple times a year. There are other schools that have something like this. There's a program called Sown to Grow, and there are others that do these. They're just quick check-ins where the students can just kind of rate how they're feeling. And what it does is it allows us to collect data to see, are there students that we should be reaching out to, right? Are there students who are just consistently feeling depressed and anxious? And so what we want to figure out to do is how do we find and implement a program like this that won't create so much more work for our clinical staff? And so goal 1 is to find that program. and then develop how do we build that in. So within that, we want to establish the goals. Like, what is it that we really want to get out of this? We don't want just random information. We want targeted information because we don't want to waste kids' time, and we don't want it to become something that they stop paying attention to. We want them to take it seriously, so we want to find out the right information. And to do that, we really wanted to conduct the research of all. Beth Steele and I met the other day on a program called Panorama, which potentially has that option. And so really looking at as a student support team, as a school council, what are those things that we want to be able to do? The second part of that, and it's great to get that information, but then what do you do with it? And so that's the second part of the goal is how do we plan for the interventions to follow? Because again, I can't have a line of kids coming out of the counselor's office. So we have to find ways to be able to interact with students in real time and make sure that they have an opportunity to speak about what they're going through. And so it's really working with our clinical staff to determine what does that look like in a way that allows them to do the work that they normally need to do, but also to add in these students that may pop up on that part. So whether it's through flow charts or structures that target certain outcomes with families, this will be the work that we're doing over the next couple of years to really find and develop that.
All right. There goes, sorry.
No worries. And then the other two are just the supportive goals of this. We really want to make sure that we are, actually, that's the high school.
Yeah, that's high school.
Yeah.
Two
That
slides
didn't
or
look like
one?
what I wrote. Yeah.
There you go. Sorry.
I had 2 slides. Yeah, yes. So the other part too is just in support of what we want to do. And I think part of it is just to continue to communicate clearly about our expectations around physical violence, verbal abuse, harassment, teasing, these things so that kids continue to know what is okay and what is not okay and what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And then how we can promote a safety and secure feelings so students feel like they can't come to adult if they are in fact going through stuff. So we want to, we'll work with large and small groups, explain courses of action as we develop this. And so hopefully what we see are reduced instances of bullying and hopefully really developing that two-way partnership with families so that the work that we're doing around mental health and safety is also supported at home. And if we can make that happen, we really accomplish something. And then finally, just to target the social skills and kind of the SEL stuff, building self-esteem and anger management and coping skills for anxiety. These things become a real thing in middle school. And so that's the other part that we want to support too, are really making sure that our students have that feeling confident and secure. And then, whether that's through the screenings, connecting with families, and increasing student engagement in classrooms. So those are our 2 big goals and our 2 supporting goals that we're really going to target to help improve, our mental health status, or at least knowledge within our school.
Right.
Questions?
I really appreciate the targeted approach. You always seem very focused on your
I'm not wasting
goals. No, I love it. And the other thing that I just think is so great is that it sort of sends the message that this is for everybody. It's not just for kids who are very visibly struggling, because there's oftentimes kids that are struggling in a less visible way.
Right.
And this sends the message that everybody can use support.
Every school has that group of kids that they know that they need to reach out to, but it's that that silent group that just flies under the radar that you really don't pay attention to. Our hope is to find out what they're experiencing and if we need to intervene. And really it's also about connecting with families. We can't do this alone. Our clinical staff just would be overwhelmed if we say, here, fix 300 kids. So we really need that partnership with families to be able to do that. So that's the other part as well into this, is really not just doing it ourselves, but reaching out to those around us to help.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now it's time for high school.
Yeah.
Here we go.
But you'll see the common themes across all the schools that you typically see with these presentations. There's a lot of vertical alignment. And so with that said, the first, action step or goal would be to address make sure we continue a safe and secure learning environment. And with certainly the last month, even in the last few days, we've heard and seen stark reminders of the importance of being vigilant and attending to safety and security. We had a recent safety and security subcommittee meeting with Stacy, and we discussed the need to sort of, at least at the high school, I'd say, and we're gonna do this across all the schools, but we have a lot of new staff in the last couple of years, and I want to review the evacuation plans. I think it was Shell earlier who was talking about how she goes over this with all the staff. How would you evacuate a school if you had to? What would the sites be? Does everybody know what their jobs would be? And this is in a controlled evacuation scenario, but then there's the one that's sort of sudden too. That's not as less controlled. So we have to sort of explain the difference to staff on that. And then how would we plan for reunifications? So that's something that will be attended to at upcoming faculty meetings and trainings. We're planning to do a table talk exercise across all the 4 buildings with principals gathered with representatives from the fire department, police department. So I think, I just wanted to mention that because the other things you see noted are typical things we do these are annual rituals, so fire drill, the safety drills. So that sort of speaks for that. But I wanted to give you something, some new information that we're working on, and we just discussed the last one. So next thing. I think all the other principals, but in particular, Jason spoke passionately about, the strong support for student wellness and mental health at all the buildings. We're continuing to do that. We've already received updates about our new bridge program that we launched last year. It's very successful. It's helped kids return from extended hospitalizations, often for mental health reasons, and clinical support as well as academic support as they, rebuild their schedule, start their gradual return to a full schedule of classes. That's thriving again this year with a new school adjustment counselor. So thank you for helping to secure the funding for that position. It's much appreciated. She's already made an impactful difference for the student. Just yesterday, I could see her. We worked on a situation involving a student, a new school adjustment counselor who's brand new in the role. Was phenomenal. She did a great job. So shout out to her. We're going to continue to implement our health screenings. We adopted 2 new screenings last year, the GAT-7 and PHQ-9. We have done this about twice a year, and we're going to increase it to 3 times a year. That's what I've heard from the clinical team. The plan is to, continue to document and follow up. We're going to continue our Student Wellness Day in the spring. So that's another thing that's not on the slide, but I want to mention. And we just had a consultation today we have contracted with the BRIGHT program, which is involved with a number of schools in Metro West, in suburban Boston. But a consultant who's with us is a graduate of Littleton High School. So it's great to see her back visiting school. And she met with our school adjustment counselor and school psychologist as a consultant role to advise on how we can make our bridge program even better. So that was just today. So lots of work attending to that. Then the other item I want to mention is that we're going to form a school culture team. I think you've heard me mention this at previous presentations at the end of last year. As a subcommittee of the school leadership team to foster and expand a positive and caring environment. All the action items are listed there, but it's so important in schools to attend to a positive climate and culture through various activities. Jay was involved this last week or so with lots of homecoming activities, I'm sure. Spirit Week activities. We do that twice a year in the fall and in the spring. So we just concluded that with a really fun school dance. It was packed. I've been here a while. This was the largest school dance we've ever had. And it reverses a trend that we had seen in the last few years, even before COVID, where we had kids not as active in staying coming out for a dance. This school dance, we had lots of guests, and we had 23 students from Spain dancing the night away on Saturday night, and that was after a raucous football game where the high school prevailed. It was exciting, and the super fan section was just wild.
It was
Great.
Certainly I was pretty busy that night just trying to keep them off the rails. And but they were all good. They were just so excited to just be out and having fun together. So that was a fun night. And that was a nice culmination to the Spirit Week. Right? And just a couple of things that aren't mentioned, but I think sometimes it's good. And I think to mention specifics as the other principals have done. So other things that we'll be doing, we'll continue to have some dances as we go through the year. I mentioned the Spanish students who are visiting. Some of our students may in turn go in June and at the conclusion of our school year, they go over to Spain. So that recruitment process is underway. I want to thank the host families in Littleton. There's lots of families who are hosting our Spanish students this week and next. They've had some fun field trips to the Boston and we have some other things, but they've been shadowing our students attending classes. So it's brought a lot of, I would say for the most part, positive energy in the building, and certainly a lot of curiosity from our students who are making new friends. We're going to continue to hold school assemblies that cultivate a positive school culture. That's on there. That's important to mention. The other thing I mentioned, I won't go into too much depth right now, as I talked about our school, our social emotional learning curriculum that at the last presentation, Character Strong, that's underway as an advisory model. And we're going to have our winter study formal in January coming up. That's something we started as a tradition to end the first semester. And once again, it will be at Devon's Common Center. That's always a fun night, all school event, so all ready to go. And that's usually very, very low tempo. So a couple of things there, and you can read all the indicators of success and the action steps. The next update. We'll talk a little bit about this again. You know, I get at the end of the school year, I gave an update on diversity, equity, inclusion. It was a pretty comprehensive presentation, and we're going to get all the principals are giving updates tonight, and I'll join them to just give, you know, add a few things in that are happening at the high school. But it's very important, of course, to ensure that the high school is free of discrimination and harassment. So we do implement annual required trainings across the district and all the schools for all employees. There's a prompt response to any concerns that might emerge. And the thing though is that school leadership team this year will be conducting surveys and focus groups with students regarding not just diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we're really talking a lot about belonging. A lot of school districts are starting to add that word. So it's a DEI to their equity DEI initiatives. We've put a strong emphasis on that. We're also going to have a book study related to the book that's focused on creating belonging activities in the classroom. I mean, kids feel welcome to build that community. So more about that. Again, I caution around surveys because we do so many. This is going to be a year of surveys at the high school because we also have accreditation surveys to administer. So people will be probably surveyed out by June for sure. We'll send another survey, but we'll just have to bear with it this year because we want their input, feedback as to how we're doing and what they recommend for improvements. And lastly, we'll continue to collaborate like we always do with Steve and the new facilities manager, Eric Bentley, energy conservation specialist as well. We address school facility needs in the energy program. I also expect that I might be adding to that capital budget request list a little bit. Steve already knows about not the big one, but some smaller ticket items, just like, for example, some sidewalk work at that part of the high school. Some paving up, we're outside our cafeteria, there's an issue, so we're
Scheduled for next summer.
So thank you. So that's something that we've been working on. So that's an update. Sometimes it's good to just not give the generic things, but that's a very specific thing that everyone notices when they come into the high school. The sprinkler needs some attending to. So we're on it. So
we couldn't do it last summer because we had the roofing contractor there.
Oh, yeah. So that's it for my update. Now I don't have to answer any questions.
Questions, my committee?
You talked a little bit about the book study on recalibrating school culture. Is that the leadership team that's doing it, or is it a broader school-wide initiative?
We would hope if it's a faculty-led PD, if it ends up being a part of our professional development days, we'll be open to everyone.
Yeah,
Calibrating school culture.
that's great. I'm a big fan of book studies because even if the book isn't that great, it just gives it like a common source for people to generate conversations from. So it gets people talking about a similar thing that it can be a springboard for a lot of good ideas.
Leadership team is right now about to embark on the book We Belong, on book study related to a title We Belong. And that's our focus for the fall. But the recalibrated school culture, I do expect it to be beyond the school leadership.
That's great. Thanks for doing that.
I was just gonna say, Joe, I really just appreciate, because you had mentioned it last year and circling back to sort of the reflective looking in and taking the voices of the students, which I see sort of multiple action steps and as you know, from the school start time survey, I'm not afraid of surveys and I think they're really valuable data points. And so really appreciate sort of hearing the voice of the students in the many ways that you all are, and then letting that sort of determine next steps.
A lot of things going on at the high school, I'll say for sure this year, competing for, a time. The key thing is, making sure that we can back to this and schedule it and make it happen. Because I found in past years and in the past school improvement points, it can be a little frustrating as a principal. Imagine anyone experiences this school, there's lots of initiatives. But you get to, oh my goodness, it's March, it's April, and we haven't done what we set out to do, on certain things, it's just, it's still there in the document. So we want to make sure that this is really, these goals are attended to, the action steps are followed through. And it requires a lot of scheduling.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're meaningful to
Thank-
students.
thank
They
you,
come
Sarah.
from students.
I was curious about the implementation of a new emergency safety alert notification system. Do we have something in place right now to like push text messages out to students in the event that we wanted real-time information going out to them?
I'm sure Kelly and Steve
Yeah,
want
we-
to talk about this because it's something we just discussed this at the council meeting. And it also, I don't know if it also came up at the safety and security meeting, but we are looking at different companies out there. Asking current information system, can't be this means, the system we use. Blackboard.
The system we were using was okay, but we needed to evolve. So we purchased Crisis Go. And we're in the process of implementing that. It takes a little while. We have to link it to our Aspen databases and have to train the police department, the fire department, and our staff on it. So we're hoping, Steve, what do you think? End of November, December, we should be fully up and running.
Realistically, probably November, probably December sometime.
Yeah.
And that's across all the buildings. I just happened to put it, note it in my plan because it was on my mind. I think I was updating the slides and I just come out of the meeting. I said, well, I'll put that in the plan, as an indicator of success because that's something that colleges use for sure actively. Sort of curious about some of the recent events up in Maine, how Bates College can manage their situation. But that's something where, real-time information, frequent updates can go out, alerts, especially helpful with evacuations. And it can also be, Crisis Go is a little bit different. We're also looking at another system to potentially replace how we use no calls, right, and things like that.
Well, that's
not Crisis Go.
It's a
but
basic
that's
communication system to replace Blackboard.
so that's another enhancement that's underway too.
Sure. We're really excited about Crisis Go because it's going to give us some features that we don't have now, and immediacy of communication is so important, and this program is going to give us that. I can't disclose everything to you in a public session, but I can simply say that everything we do in our schools, our police department, and fire department are linked. So it's very crisp, and we feel we're really good where we are in terms of safety and security in our schools.
I'll add your point about inclusion and a sense of belonging. It triggered me to remember this is more for maybe perhaps Shaker Lane and Russell Street. I had recently read an article, and perhaps this is already taking place within the buildings, but I thought it was quite interesting. It was about a teacher who periodically would sort of survey the class about which students would you like to sit next to next, or who is the class leader and that type of thing. And she would collect the results, or he or she would collect the results, and they really weren't looking for who the children wanted to sit next to. What they were looking was to make sure that someone wanted to always sit next to someone, or in the event that there was an individual had sort of like the classroom leader and then maybe had like fallen out of favor among their peers, is kind of an opportunity to check in with those individuals, those soft skills. So perhaps something like that started taking place, but I thought it was kind of a neat and engaging way to get the class involved in kind of surveying the class without them really knowing what's going on because age appropriateness. So just pass that along. Thank you.
Cool.
Thanks, John.
See you soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much for sharing the school improvement plan updates. And we're gonna move on to DEI update. Looks like Lynn's taking the podium, Lynn and Beth. To kick it off.
Yeah, return your curveball. We're not on the
Okay.
agenda, but we're gonna start this one.
Quite all right.
We got party crashing, yeah. Since it's such an important topic, right, that we want to look at globally as a district and then pass it off at each individual school too. I will say that we are not the prop bringers of this presentation, so you're gonna have to wait for a little bit later in the presentation for any props to come up. And really we wanted to follow up because we heard, as Dr. Clinton indicated last spring, he did a really thorough presentation on DEI. And we heard the request of getting some more information, more updates about what's going on. And so we want to follow up on that at all the school levels and then also globally at the district level. And it's kind of a nice tie-in to the standard 4 of climate and culture because DEI is so embedded and intertwined in what we do on a daily basis to really make sure that we have that inclusive culture and that inclusive climate. So next slide, please, Steve. Thank you. As our discussions have indicated, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the district slide 1 before, Steve. Under perfect, thank you. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a central focus and priority for our district, and it is ongoing, right? It's a continuous journey. There's no actual destination. And so our way in ensuring that this happens is to incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our district strategic plan. This summer, we re-examined our plan and updated it specifically through a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so when you review that plan, when you take a look at that, you will note subtle but very explicit inclusion of diversity and equity throughout the plan. 2 specific examples include 2 new goals that we have written for our plan this year. One being to formalize a comprehensive staff recruitment, selection, and retention program. And an action step for that specific goal is to include recruiting and supporting a diverse workforce that represents our student body and community. The second goal that we want to highlight that is new is that we are going to implement a comprehensive multi-tiered, we're working on implementing a comprehensive multi-tiered system of support that equitably supports all students. Our strategic plan sets forth really high standards and expectations that we hold for ourselves, and it's really a mission that we have set for ourselves. And the beauty of it is that it's a living document that we try to actualize and live every day. And what has really supported being able to live that is the creation of our diversity, equity, and inclusion team.
Which is exciting to talk about because we are going into the 4th year of having a diversity, equity, and inclusion team. And so we remain focused on ensuring that the DEI team continues to make time and space for such important topics. Each year, we try to focus on 1 or 2 major goals that are decided upon collaboratively by the team. So last year, we decided to focus on creating a community-facing website that made clear our stance on DEI, as well as to share valid and reputable resources on these topics for our staff, students, and greater community. So we built this site to be a living and evolving go-to resource for all. So thus, we wanted to walk you through it quickly this evening. So with Beth's assistance, I'll try and walk us through the website and she will navigate us through the website. So if you see on the front page on the website, the first front page displays images from the district that celebrate the DEI mission. And then right below that, we do have the district's mission that was created using an equity lens. Further down, you'll see definitions on what diversity, equity, and inclusion are. And as you will see, credits given to Shrewsbury Public Schools because we've adapted our definitions using information from their site. Throughout the year last year, we spent significant time working on reviewing the content that other districts on other district sites to create our own site's identity and publish what we felt was important for our community. So on the top right tab, oh, I'm sorry, I'm jumping. So we have DEI in mass education. So the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has a lot of very, very well vetted resources. So we thought it was also important to link that content on the site as well.
And I think what's important to note is that DESE's really pushing also, they've really taken DEI very seriously over the past handful of years, and it's doing a really nice job of embedding it into what their practices that already exist. A really wonderful example of that is the updated evaluation system that they've been working on for a few years and that they're looking at hopefully pushing out very soon. It really, the DEI just kind of is throughout the document. It's not in one specific area, which is a nice change from what previously had.
And that's really what we tried to replicate as well when we reworked our strategic plan, was to really infuse this mission and these ideals throughout everything that we do. And so on the top tab, you'll see that we have curated resources on the following topics: race and ethnicity, differently abled, and gender and sexuality. And so below that, up on the top right, you'll see DEI in action. And so this is where we provide a few highlights regarding activities that are happening in the schools. And the one activity that we would really like to highlight before we hand this over to Michelle to start talking about Shaker Lane is to highlight the upcoming event that we have. And that's when we have Dr. Khalees Warnham coming to the district on December 5th at 6 p.m. at Littleton High School. She'll be presenting on defining equity and cultural proficiency. She is a renowned leader in speaking on this topic. And so we certainly would encourage you to spread the word and hopefully we can get a great turnout there. So, and now Beth and I'd like to pass it over to Michelle to talk about Shaker Lane.
Sorry, Beth, you had said something and I was processing it while you were talking about the two goals that you had mentioned, and the one of the goals being about the staff or increasing the diversity amongst the staff. Can I just ask, because this is something my organization is doing, I'm sure so many organizations in this commitment to doing that, and that requires really a look at and a change in practice. And so have you all, maybe you're not there yet, and that this is sort of the first step of identifying that as a goal, or have you thought about what those changes in practice could potentially look like to actually be able to achieve that goal?
So I think we're more in the beginning stages. I think we've acknowledged, right, that this is the change that we want to make, we need to make for the government of our district as a whole. And so this more specific kind of the practices that need to be adjusted are what is in conversation at the moment.
Okay, great.
Right. I think I'm looking at what are we doing now? What is our current reality? What does the landscape of our staff look like? And then what are the practices that we can change to be able to change that landscape?
Yeah. Great place to start.
Beth, can you clarify a little bit about, you mentioned that there was a evaluation tool that DESE had changed, that it was more DEI centric. Is that the teacher eval tool?
It is, yeah.
So they changed the rubric?
Yeah, they have.
They've adjusted the rubric.
They have updated the rubric. And so it used to be, right, cultural proficiency was in a silo on the rubric, and it really isn't the way that kind of, we want it to be integrated, right? And so they did kind of overhaul, they overhauled the evaluation, the rubric for both educators and administrators. And they've are going through pilots right now with regards to implementing that and those big changes. The biggest change I will say is that's one of the biggest changes, is that taking out that siloed cultural proficiency, siloed equity, and putting that lens over the entire document, which I really appreciate. I think it's wonderful. And I think, as we indicated, that's what we tried to do with our strategic plan this summer, of not having anything siloed such as that really should be.
It's not a standard thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge.
It is.
And then you can build goals around that too.
Exactly. And our teachers are already doing that without even adopting the new evaluation tool. So that's important to note too. But
that's good news.
yeah.
The SMART goals that we were trained on.
Yeah.
Those are all SMARTY goals, the IE that have inclusivity and equity as part of it. It's not just specific measurable. Yeah, they're not smart. I actually thought they were why. What's the why till I looked it up?
Yeah, it's enough.
Okay, so where are we now? As you might have heard, Dr. Felice Warnham has given us some PD as an administrative team, and our staff have taken part in the adaptive XPD. And it's through that adaptive XPD that some of the ideas for the cultural fair next week have come up, because two of the staff members were the ones that said, hey, let's send out this survey back in the spring. We reviewed the data, and when they were talking about this in some of the meetings that they were having, the teachers had their own adaptive XPD. We had a separate one as administrators. They were sharing some of these ideas that we were going to try out at Shaker Lane. So I think, that's happened and it's continuing to happen. We have this little mini cultural committee right now. There's 4 of us on it. I think after next week, we want to then pitch it out to the staff in our November 14th staff meeting. I think that's the 7 days after the 17th. The 14th, we're going to pitch it out to the rest of the staff to see if there's anybody else that wants to join us, other ideas. As I mentioned, we do the diversity readings every month. We layer in the community meetings to not just have heart, but a component that has diversity in some fashion. Again, not just diversity in culture, but across the whole lens of identity as well. We've actually diversified our staff members. We have hired a number of staff members. I think we're up to 12 staff members that have a background. And when I was looking at our needs assessment that was done through Katie Novak's organization, one of the things was hire staff that are reflective of the student body in front of you. And I'm happy to say that we have a handful of those staff members right now, and continuing to try and build that staff membership. We also have many teachers who are inviting families to come in and do presentations. I know you came in and gave a presentation before. So we have other families that are coming in. Justin, I know your wife came in, or you guys came in and did a presentation as well. So the teachers are inviting families to come in and give presentations that are reflective of who they are, their backgrounds, their experiences. So that's great. So where we are going, more school-wide events, classroom events, and I put open to ideas because I think that's where the jackpot is. That's where we're getting the ideas, is from families and putting it out there. So, not another survey, but I just say this publicly. If anyone has an idea, we're going to continue to evaluate our survey data, but I'm happy to evaluate any things that come our way. Well, that's where we're at.
Also really appreciate the survey, appreciate that you all are reading the survey and putting it into action. I'm really excited to have a table at the fair next week, whatever that will look like, but it's really appreciate. I mean, I'm one of those parents that will raise my hand and come into the classroom even if the teacher doesn't ask, but this is really an opportunity for those maybe that aren't so comfortable doing that, like to really put that out there, an open invitation to everybody. And I think more of that, and just excited to see more of that. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I just want to go over, I have a similar list to the list that Michelle just shared. So the adaptive X professional development we completed, that's where we are now. Russell Street has had several members on the DEI committee since the very beginning, who continue to be on the committee, and that has been wonderful for us. The Book a Day program, as I indicated before, is something that's alive and well at Russell Street, and I'll share perhaps in a second. Our school-wide meetings that I talked about, we continue to have cultural presentations and programs. I want to give a shout out to the PTA across the district. They chose to have or to advertise for a position for a cultural liaison throughout the whole, all 4 schools. And Bharti Joshi is our cultural liaison. And in that role, she looks for appropriate presentations to bring to all of the 4 schools. So I don't know if I'm stealing your thunder, Jason. I think I am a little, there's a presentation coming up at Russell Street and at the middle school, that's, Indian folk art, where all students will be, doing lamp painting. And at Russell Street on November 8th. So that's something that, the Hardy found, and I think, Littleton Education Fund, the Cultural, Council, it perhaps is funding part and PTA is funding part. So we're looking forward to that. Every single one of our students at Russell Street will, paint, a lamp and learn about that and get to bring it home. So that's exciting. Leah Botko, shout out to her, has been adding food selections to the menu. If you look, last week we had falafel. That was really exciting. Some kids try it, some kids don't, but it's really, really interesting. So, and really just shout out to her for incorporating that. And also, as Michelle and Beth indicated earlier, the attention to diversity in staffing. We just talked about that at our admin council meeting this week, in different ways that we can indicate to people that we're looking to diversify in our staffing in Littleton. I do want to share the several props that I brought about the Book a Day program, both for inclusion and then just for DEI, but also just in SEL that we talked about before. These are just, there's hundreds of these. It took me 2 seconds to pick these this afternoon. Just gorgeous picture books that are a really quick read. The inside cover of IMNF says, this is inspired to love who you are, respect others, and be kind to one another. And it's just a really quick read with beautiful pictures that kids, teachers and kids can talk about later. A Day with Yaya. This is about going on an outing with a grandmother, and she teaches them her knowledge of the natural world to her grandchildren, picking mushrooms and edible plants. So, and it's a beautiful book. And this book, The Boy in the Orange Cape, is about a little boy who gets bullied for wearing an orange cape to school repeatedly, until he indicates to one of his classmates that his mom is sick and he wears the orange cape because it's her favorite color and he's wearing it to support her. And then his classmates all start to show up one by one with orange capes to support him. So that would certainly be thought-provoking and conversation starting at school. So these are the types of books that I'm talking about when I talk about our Book a Day. I think where we're going with DEI is to just be very intentional about it. When I talked to the team leaders last week, when we were talking about just sort of where we are and where we're going, the 5th grade teachers indicated that they do heritage stars at the beginning of the year. And each individual student researches their own personal heritage. And then that's something that they share out with their classmates. They've added recently Esperanza Rising to their reading list, which is about a young girl and her Mexican heritage. They also later in the year read the Jackie Robinson story and his struggles of being the first African-American Major League Baseball player. A 3rd grade teacher indicated that in addition to the second step lessons, due to a situation in her classroom last year, she and some other teachers created a lesson about microaggressions and shared that in her class. I mentioned about the folk art, and also we're really working hard to encourage and invite family members to come into the school, into our classrooms, and to share their culture and traditions with us as we move forward. Any questions?
I just want to ditto the appreciation of Leah. We were talking about it this morning. It's just an incredible shift in attention to not just nutrition, but the diversity of the different types of food. I hear about it every week and my kids are so excited. It's really incredible.
It was really cute. I think it was yesterday. She had done roasted beets, and now she's putting on if you notice the November menu, she says the different farms, local farms that she gets them from, which is, nice to give a shout out to them as well. But sometimes I notice at Russell Street, the kids have no idea what it is on their plate. So yesterday there was these gorgeous, fresh roasted beets. She was cutting them in the morning and roasting them. And, you know, I would have gone around to all the plates and eaten that. They just looked delicious. And so I went on the microphone and I said, raise your hand if you know what that is on your plate. And just this little girl raised her hand, and I called her and she said, it's roasted beets. And I said, you really should try them. They're really quite delicious. And this little boy said, those were breakfast. It's always fun. It's always fun to talk about the food. But she has done a wonderful job at incorporating fresh fruits and vegetables. And, you know, if you get kids to try different things that, you know, some kids don't try it, but some kids do. And so it's really good that she keeps offering those choices.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Our DEI efforts really focus on UDL, Universal Design for Learning. The idea behind UDL is one of the big parts of it is getting to know your students, and not just their personalities and their likes and dislikes, but getting to know them at a cultural level, getting to know them as students, their backgrounds, their experiences, and using those experiences and using those influences to help teach them more effectively. And so at the middle school, we take that idea and really make it a part of our DEI work. So for example, our advisory programs are designed so that staff have an opportunity to get to know students on that level, right, as they move through. And this year we are implementing UDL lesson plans, UDL design lesson plans into our advisory program to create a vested interest for staff, and also to just start to elicit some of those bits of knowledge that staff can use in order to teach more effectively. But it also opens the door for a lot of work that we want to do and create sympathy and empathy that we want to do. So in order to support that, one of the things that we're doing at the middle school is really working to increase the expectations for UDL focused goals and evaluations, right? Putting some skin in the game and say, okay, we're going to hold you to this goal, right? We want you to implement, try it, move on, and improve. And so that part, I think, is really what we're talking about is saying, okay, we're all in and moving forward with that and making it a part of what we do. Our library is steadily improving its representation. We have someone who has been working diligently to help update our library and get the kind of books in that are far more representative of our population. And we will continue to do things like the roadshow. We try to build them around conference days. So we have one coming up late November and, you know, again in the spring. So we'll start to add to those. So where are we going? One of the things that we'll have, and Lynn can speak to this too if she'd like, Project 351 is a partnership with the state in which each of the 351 cities and towns select middle school students to represent their town at a caucus at the State House. The design, the idea is that this is a student-led youth change movement, and through that, they work on things like community building, right? Service to community, and this idea of giving back and improving. And so what happens is as these kids move up through the ranks through their high school years, they have opportunities to give back to their schools and their communities. And so this is one of those years where we have somebody at the high school who is creating something or implementing something called the Playbook. And the Playbook is basically, it's a partnership with the Boston Celtics in which high school students and middle school students create opportunities for discussion that are designed to promote anti-discrimination, right? Designed to promote or prevent bias, all in a way that is coming from peer voices and from places that speak to experience. And so we're really looking forward to what that could potentially be as we move forward. Cheryl spoke about our culture workshop with the folk art. We're really excited about that. And again, thanks to our PTA for reaching out. It was wonderful work. I wish I could take credit. They put in all the effort. And so we're going to ride their coattails for a little bit. And then in addition to that, just to continue to assess our inclusivity in the class, work on our expectations. It's just a constant state of review so that we don't slide into old habits or some kind of status quo. So that's where we're at and where we're going. Any questions?
One, and this is sort of gonna, I think, be middle school and high school. And also dovetails with sort of your goals before with mental health and what I talked about. The world is a heavy place right now. And so just curious sort of where that's fitting in both middle school and high school and can wait to talk about that in yours too, but like, have you sort of seen a rise in sort of a tense environment? Is there some addressing that teachers have had to do more recently, or maybe not, or like, has anything sort of come up through sort of what's happening?
I think what we're seeing, this mostly speculation, but I think we're seeing is there are kids that are coming from the time in their real critical developmental stages, being at home and dealing with some of those issues. It may apply more to the mental health part, but we're seeing students who are just requiring more resources and more needs. The world outside is heavy. And so, for example, when the war broke out in Israel a couple of weeks ago, it was something that all of a sudden we had to stop what we were doing to make sure that our students are not being targeted or laughed at or humiliated or anything like that. So there are these times where the outside world does creep into what we're doing, and we have to pause to address those moments. You know, our school's not as diverse as some, but we still have to maintain that vigilance. And so it's important with staff to say, listen, you have to keep the eyes open, you have to keep the ears open. We cannot allow for these jokes and these aggressions to happen. And so this far, we have not had any of that, at least not that's been brought to my desk. So that's kind of where we're doing. Yeah, it is a tough battle to fight the outside world in what we're doing. And you know, kids from 11 to 13 and 14, they're impressionable. They come in with what they've heard from home, what they've seen on TV, and it helps start to inform their beliefs about the world around them. So it's really important for us to be a beacon of, listen, this is what we believe, and this is what we expect in our halls. And so it's work that'll never end, but we're up for the challenge.
I was at the middle school today and was in every classroom, and it was a real good feel. Really good.
Well, to that point, there's so much disinformation on social media right now about the war in Israel, and I'm glad that you have the attitude of having eyes and ears open, because you know it's really incumbent upon the teachers who are just listening to conversations to address some of the disinformation.
One of the biggest things that we see are kids saying, I'm just joking. And because they lost a lot of that socialization, I don't think they realize how much these jokes can hurt. It's what they've seen on TikTok, it's what they've seen on YouTube or anything else. And so part of that is us maintaining that, listen, we have to have the eyes and ears, because the students may not be coming from a place of hate, but they are coming from a place of misinformation or something else. And we want to make sure that we're addressing that in the moment, so that not only can that student learn, but the others around.
Yeah. And going back to something you said a little bit earlier about Project 351,
Yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of overlap with that and the action civics requirement at 8th grade and at the high school. Is that are there overlaps with that, or is that
There are, in the sense of the spirit of it. So Project for 351 is something completely outside of it. It's a great program, and what it really is, it targets the unsung leader in a grade. So not the kid who's got the best grades, not the kid who's the most vocal and has the most influence. It's those middle kids that could become great leaders. They just haven't had the opportunity. And I love that aspect about it. So one of the requirements, they get together and they meet as a whole group, and then they break off into their interest areas, and they begin to do some of that community work. And so when it gets to come back, that's where we can really see it. So I'll be curious to see how it plays out. So, but in its essence, yeah, it is like that action civics. There are overlaps. We just select one candidate that in middle school to go. So if we had more, we could really build around it, but it's just the one that we contribute.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay. Well, again, so as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we were talking about the USTL curriculum, character strong and advising a strong focus on bond. That's, you know, a really important part of our student improvement plan, and we're actually paying attention to that each week, particularly in our advisory program. With Monday morning advisory meeting on a regular basis. That's clear indication for attending. So the format for tonight is where we are now, and where are we going. So you've already heard from me about a lot about where we are and where we're going last June. But I'll just give a little recap for folks at home and for you, just as a reminder. Embedded into our U.S. history coursework our topics that address racism. And that's something that I don't have the specifics for you tonight, and I don't think that's the goal tonight, but I just want to, the civil rights, slavery, things like that. Those are topics that are just part of the coursework. So I wanted to acknowledge that in terms of how we address the curriculum. We do have a soon-to-be active DEI and D club, belonging with the, I imagine the D to that, active DEI and GSA club. Many staff are reading books on culturally responsive teaching, along with independent topics related to diversity, equity, belonging, inclusion, independent of professional development, just out of their own interest. We have seen the return of the Pals Club. I appreciate once Snow recognizing Tracy Turner for all she does. She was instrumental, along with Eric Arnold and a number of staff, in our distinction and recognition by Special Olympics this year as a unified champion school. And in their letter to us, and award, they recognized LHS's commitment to, and I would like to read this to you, commitment to fostering a socially inclusive school climate that emphasizes acceptance, respect, human dignity for all students. And so it was nice to be recognized. We framed the award and have it on display in the main office. So something we're proud of, and want to recognize the staff who were instrumental in accomplishing that. That's not the first time we've been recognized as a unified champion school by Special Olympics. Where we go at school leadership team, I've talked about surveys before, and this is actually, I think, a similar item from the school improvement plan. It'll be exactly the same. We'll conduct surveys, focus groups of students regarding their perceptions, and really try to get, that has to be scheduled, and we have to attend to that. But one of the ways I'll be addressing that is, I just met with a senior today to talk about having regular meetings with the class officers for each grade. So I'm meeting with the class officers of the senior class, junior class in November, freshmen, sophomores in December. But then that's just the class officers. And then I want to meet with the DEI club, the GSA club, try to hear different voices. Make sure the students know they have a direct connection with the principal and the assistant principal if they ever have any questions or need anything. So that's something I wanted to bring to your attention. And we were talking about book studies at the last presentation a short time ago. The school leadership team is going to participate in a book study of the book We Belong, 50 Strategies to Build Community. Our hope and plan for this is to share out of our discussions, share specific recommendations for all the staff to, activities they can easily implement in an effort to build a sense of belonging and community in each class. So that's that item. The next slide, please. Sort of a recap of some stuff on the left. Where are we now from last June? MIA has put a strong, along with so many associations and organizations, has put a strong emphasis on DEI. And there's a presentation at the beginning of each athletic season, talking about implicit bias, talking about bullying, talking about hazing, and things like that, and making sure that the teams are, emphasizing good sportsmanship, of course, and attentive to being inclusive. And I just explained how we're being recognized for that as well. And it seems like the unified teams continue to expand, whether it's basketball and then it was there's track, now there's a bowling team, and we're looking at some other teams, looking at potentially a sports team as well for unified. So that's really cool. Great Kindness Challenge. These are some things we do sort of throughout the year. Name Calling Week in January, Spread the Word Inclusion event in March, National Culture Week in April, and the Stop All Bullying campaign in May. I wanted to share this from Dave Pascucci, the ELA curriculum coordinator. He shared with me that the ELA department is providing more reading options that feature diverse representation. That's already well underway in our school library, but I wanted to highlight that since he asked me to mention it. Where are we going? We'd like to have a student-led presentation. We did this a few years back with GSA. It was really impactful, student-led, staff participation, giving testimony about their own lived experiences, and how they felt different and growing up. The staff talked about that and not always included. And then we had students speak to their own experiences at this. It's been a while, so we'd like to do this again. It had a definitely positive impact on the school when we did it. lots of good feedback after that. We'd also like to bring in some guest speakers for students and staff with opportunities for discussion related to topics of, culture and DEI. There'll be a workshop opportunity in the evening at some point. We're not sure exactly what this will look like. We're engaging families. I know the ones I'll be talking about soon. I'd like to host a principals roundtable. We might call it a forum related to vision of a graduate. And I'd like to talk about the character strong curriculum. Have that on the agenda. So, parents, caregivers, if they had any questions, they could come and talk about that. We'll try to do a few of these throughout the year. They'll be hosted by Keith, the assistant for Keith and me. And just give another opportunity for parents to connect with us in the evening. We're considering all school book reading assignment with diverse options. Not sure exactly where that's at, but that's a faculty-led initiative. And then the other thing, I just met with the director of NEAS for accreditation yesterday. She came to visit our faculty and presented at a faculty meeting. And one of the things that is really pronounced in the new accreditation standards that we just published in 2023 is to go through a self-reflection process, which we're just initiating with a DEI lens, DEI lens, really. She said, she made sure to mention the B too, belonging. Beth had talked about how DESE's emphasizing that in so many things, including the educator evaluation process. Well, this is going to be part and parcel of our self-reflection and reaccreditation. We'll be examining different areas related to access, decision-making. I was glad to see the definitions posted up there for diversity, equity, inclusion, because that's one of the things they asked for. Are there agreed upon definitions for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? They also asked about focus groups, and glad to see that we're ahead of that at the high school. We're planning that. They also we'll look at different survey data and see how this is disaggregated by categories. And that will be helpful for us and informative for us. So there's a lot happening. And I hope that you find that sort of refreshing and reassuring that all these things are being attended to in a very thoughtful way at all the schools. Any questions?
I love the emphasis on belonging. I just think that's such a positive angle to approach the DEI work. And, I wonder if that, during the leadership meetings, I wonder if that can be considered to be like a district-wide emphasis and not just at the high school.
Oh, I think it already is. I think in all the different social emotional learning curriculums in each school, it's really already there. We're just really putting we'll put an exclamation point next to belonging, putting it bold and underlining it. And I think, we'll see it through, and we want to see the fruition of this and how things, kids feel really included. It seems to be readily accepted and understood by people too, where sometimes, whether it's political views, people have different views on diversity, equity, inclusion, but belonging is something we can all agree on. And even the corporate world, the corporate executives are putting more emphasis on belonging in their corporate cultures as well as inclusion. So with that said, I think, sums it up for us tonight.
There will be.
Jack, and I'm cutting you off back here, Frankie. We're probably gonna
I say the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So go ahead.
So we just had a recent conversation about adding the B, and it's going to be it's on the agenda for our next DEI team meeting. We don't make any decisions like that siloed or exclusive of any group members, and so before we make that decision, we want to be a group decision, a group conversation as an important. That's great. So
Way ahead.
yeah, all part of it.
Good. Sabina?
Yeah, sorry, can I just, similar questions to what I had asked Jason, especially because it's not age appropriate at this age, like. I think everybody's sort of DEI commitments are being tested right now as a country even, and and everything that's happening.
I think it's going to get more challenging.
Yeah, and so do you feel like, the staff is
Right now,
equipped or you're equipped to?
We're sort of,
support.
it's still, I think Jason sort of said, and Kelly mentioned it too, just having been visible in the schools and watching things. It's still very calm. I think at least nothing really overt. If there's undertones or undercurrents related to, how students are feeling related to the Israeli Hamas conflict right now. We're not really hearing a lot directly from students. We could, I certainly think teachers would have brought it to my attention. I know, I'm sure a lot of teachers, including especially the history teachers, addressed it right when it happened, when October 6th and 7th, at the following Monday and Tuesday. I know Kelly had sent out, I think the Sunday night or Monday night, sent some resources for history teachers to me. We can forward that on to them. I think it's something we have to be mindful of though, as we go ahead. It's certainly, been really impacting college campuses. On my ride over here tonight, I was listening to a brief segment on NPR about how to talk to children about violence. And I think it was especially to focus topic tonight on the program because of what happened in Lewiston, Maine, just the other day, just last night. And so, children are being impacted by all those reports of, it's really a traumatic world right now. I mean, it's so much, and it's readily on their phone, accessible on their phone, and talked about devices, and how do we manage that as adults and parents in our community, talk to our children, and certainly, educators have to be prepared for that too. So we'll continue to send out resources for staff on how to handle topics, but we haven't had, to get right at the heart maybe of what you're curious about that. I haven't seen an increase in tension among students. That is surfaced already in college campuses, even college campuses near us. So I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I won't speak for the whole committee or not if I can, but if there's any way that we all can support you
Thank you.
right now, but also, with this endeavor at any point, just.
Yeah,
We appreciate that.
We've checked on a couple of students we know, and the counselors are aware of some students, especially students who have family in Israel. Those are the ones I've heard about most specifically in the last 2 months.
Yeah.
It's on our minds all the time.
I'll just add, I think that this work is incredibly important. I'm impressed with the district's commitment to this work. I believe there's some academic pressure to, MAP scores and MCAS scores and early literacy screening and all that AP exams, building out the curriculum. That's all important. But this is really important as well. So it's not for nothing. And we appreciate everyone's hard work.
Thank you for all your kind comments. Thank you.
Okay, just on that same note, I don't know that anyone noted it earlier, but we are all members of the DEI committee, but I just want to say thank you to, and note that at the very onset of this, Beth and Lynn took this on as their challenge. They co-chair their committee, and have done a really outstanding job, in my opinion, of creating the agendas and keeping the meetings flowing and getting really this important work done. So I just want to know that and say thank you to them.
You have all had a long day. You're certainly free to start your journey home if you'd like to.
All right, that wraps up the presentation portion of the evening. Thank you, everyone. Job well done. This is our second opportunity for interested citizens. So if we have anyone in the room or on Zoom, hearing no one, we'll move right along. We've got a couple of subcommittee reports to wrap up this evening. The first is PNBC, which is typically a report from Stacy, who I believe was not able to join us. So we'll wait to hear that report. Budget subcommittee can report that we have our meeting scheduled for November 1st. I think did you see the concept for that? Okay. Can you zoom in or no? No. All right, we'll look to reschedule. I was going to say that I had gotten an email from Dorothy about scheduling that meeting the same day as special town meeting. I didn't necessarily see a conflict with a 4 p.m. meeting and a 7 p.m. Special town meeting. But I suppose with Jen not being able to make it, we'll just look to reschedule.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, we'll push it a week.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Policy subcommittee.
Oh, we do have something to report. Steve, would you like to go ahead and report?
Yeah, we don't have the policies to share today.
No,
right?
no, but just,
Okay.
we had a meeting
We
today.
did meet this afternoon, a very productive meeting, I would say. Dorothy's not here, but she's awfully organized and we were able to crank through about 7 policies this afternoon. And so we will be ready to present to the committee next meeting. Not all 7.
Yeah.
Because some of them were just reviewed, but the ones that will require a review from this committee.
Okay, that's terrific. Is there anything to report? Again, Stacy's not able to join us this evening, but the Shaker Lane Building Committee
Yeah, really.
update, other than the item on at town meeting.
Real quick update, we're finishing some revisions in the document that basically how to document the interview process for OPMs. And we had to submit it with their tables rather than the tables we created, so we're close. Optimistic that we're going to make that November 2nd meeting. That meeting is really important because we have to have that meeting before we hire an OPM. And we're ready to hire an OPM, but we just have to go through these next steps. So we're close.
You have an update from CPAC?
Yep. So on Tuesday, October 24th, CPAC held an information session at the high school. Leslie from the Federation for Children with Special Needs joined us. And it was an evening filled with engaging conversation and discussions about CPAC. So CPAC stands for Special Education Parent Advisory Council. So we want to increase family involvement, and we want to thank the parents and the special educators that were at the meeting and welcome any additional families that would like to join CPAC. The next meeting will be December 6th at the Littleton Fire Department.
Perfect. And for subcommittee reports, these are typically the ones that we touch on every agenda, but if you folks want to revisit the subcommittees that we're all on, if you have something that you wish to add to an agenda because you met or accomplished something, please feel free to reach out and we can get you scheduled on the agenda, okay? That kind of wraps up tonight's business. There is an opportunity for an executive session this evening. We're pretty close as a negotiating team. Wrapping up some spillover work from the teacher's contract. So there are the positions of BCBA, OT, and PT are being accredited into Union A membership. So I just wanted to kind of head nod if everyone could stick around for a couple of minutes after the meeting, just real quick. Okay. So since it looks like we'll have a quorum for that, I'll motion that we move into executive session for the purposes of contract negotiation. Intent to return to open session.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. We have adjourned from open session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. It's